6 attractive women and 7 strong men are stranded on a deserted island. To ensure the orderly reproduction of humanity, they must eliminate the only bachelor and face a life of cohabitation. This is a 13-person version of Robinson Crusoe, guiding a hidden wolf among them. A group of tourists, supposed to board a luxury cruise ship, are instead forced into an unimaginable life of barbarians. Just a week ago, 13 unique tourists arrived at the dock, ready to be transferred to the luxury cruise ship by small boat. Everything was peaceful, with everyone enjoying food, drinks, conversation, and laughter, with no premonition of the impending disaster. Mark, noticing the captain's absence, went to the cockpit to ask when they could board the ship. However, upon reaching the stern, he saw thick smoke billowing from the cockpit, along with a burning smell. He sensed something was amiss. He hurried inside, only to find the entire engine room engulfed in flames, surrounded by oil drums. Mark had intended to rush in to put out the fire, but when he came up, he found the deck also ablaze. Furthermore, what infuriated Mark was that the captain had actually driven off on the yacht alone. The fire was growing larger and larger. If they didn't find a way to escape quickly, everyone would be cremated on the spot. Furthermore, the engine room was the main source of the fire, with barrels of gasoline stacked there, threatening to explode at any moment. Facing death, everyone was in a state of panic, and even the more timid chose to jump into the sea to save themselves. However, surviving in the vast ocean without any floating objects was absolutely impossible, so Mark began to gather together several of his companions and prepare to use the awning as a raft. As the fire grew more fierce, the oil barrels reached the critical point of flammability. At this critical moment, the roof finally broke free from the hull, and everyone jumped into the water for safety. As the flames shot up into the sky, a louder explosion followed, and the hull was instantly reduced to a pile of debris. Fortunately, Mark jumped into the sea at the last moment, saving his life. Although everyone escaped the disaster and even had a raft to float, there were too many wolves and too little meat. The palm-sized space simply couldn't support so many people. They could only temporarily place the women aboard, while the men slowly soaked in the seawater. Moreover, it was unknown when the rescue ship would arrive, and whether they could hold out until then was uncertain. Just as everyone was hanging on the edge of their seats, a fishing boat suddenly approached from the distance. Seeing hope, everyone was instantly cheered up. The Alliance stood up and shouted for help, hoping to be seen. To ensure timely detection, Mark obeyed the order and shouted for help. However, the development was unexpected. The fishing boat, which was clearly heading towards the group, inexplicably changed direction. It was precisely because Mark was not fast enough that he was lucky enough to escape a disaster. As a very successful businessman, it turned out that he had long been on the kidnapping list, but it was unknown who had planned the assassination. The entire boatload of tourists was burned to ashes. The gang leader, realizing someone had cut off his financial resources, gave up on rescuing the survivors in anger. However, he never expected that everyone else would survive. Seeing the enemy's message drifting further and further away, Mark, disheartened, gave up the chase. But the fat man who had come with him, still unwilling to give up, continued to glide forward with his large bucket in hand. It wasn't until Mark had long since returned and the moon was high in the night sky that everyone realized he was gone. The fat man on the other side was also in a panic. Not only had the fishing boat failed to catch up, but he had also lost his way in the hope of reuniting with the others. Now, there was only one way left for him, and that was to slowly die in the sea. The bizarre shipwreck had only just begun, and one of the survivors had been eliminated. As time passed, everyone suffered greatly in the sea, not only having to endure the pounding of the icy rain, but also starving under the romantic starry sky. After a week of hopeless drifting, the survivors finally saw light. Miraculously, a mountain appeared ahead, signaling they had finally found land. Exhausted, they reached the island, feeling their lives finally secure. They no longer had to endure a slow death in the icy waters. Unbeknownst to them, the island held a far more treacherous threat than their current shipwreck. An unprecedented crisis was slowly approaching. A deafening roar rattled the men, their legs weakened with fear. They had never heard such terrifying roars before. Although the extent of his combat power was unknown, the man still picked up a brick, ready to fight the unknown creature to the death. Judging by the increasingly clear sounds, the beast was closing in on them. Just as everyone was reaching their peak of nervousness, something unexpected happened. A white ball of flesh emerged from the dense forest. It turned out to be the stray Fatty. Not only had he not perished in the sea, but he had also survived. He even reached the island before everyone else, but after exploring, Big Fat discovered it was a deserted island, meaning they would have to seek rescue elsewhere. Since they had been drifting in the sea for days, their bodies were already strained. The most important thing now was to find a source of water. Fortunately, there was an expert in wilderness survival on the team, and under his guidance, they quickly found a clear river. After everyone spent the night peacefully, Basha was the first to awaken. For someone unfamiliar with fear, the eerie journal was her greatest pleasure. This time, Basha found another strange painted skin within. The strange symbols seemed to indicate a special presence on the island. If anyone else had seen the journal, it would surely have drawn the attention of the entire group. But Basha, the foolish child, was the first to discover it. As she gazed toward the distant mountains, she was suddenly captivated by the strange rocks atop them. This is an absolutely fatal weakness for a crazy and stupid person, because they will never realize what kind of terrifying creature is quietly approaching behind them. As Basha gradually climbed to the top of the mountain, the thing behind her finally couldn't bear the excitement and sprinted towards her. No matter what happened, they finally provoked that thing.